The studio lights burned hot. The cameras rolled silently. And somewhere beneath them, tension cracked like ice underfoot. Prince Harry sat across from Bill Maher. A half-smile on his face, but it was strained. The kind of smile you wear when, you know, a storm is coming, and you can't stop it. The audience sensed something was off. The air was thick with anticipation, charged, uneasy. Bill adjusted his tie. Harry leaned back, defensive, guarded. Then came the question. So, tell me, Harry, at what point does privacy mean becoming the center of attention every week? The room froze. Harry blinked. Once, twice, and then, with that now familiar tone poised but sharp, he answered. Privacy doesn't mean silence, Bill. It means choice. But Ma didn't blink. Then why does it feel like the only choice is talk louder? The crowd chuckled nervously. Harry didn't. Something cracked behind his eyes. And from that moment forward, it stopped being an interview and started becoming a battle. It hadn't always been this way. Not for Harry. Not for the young boy who once walked behind his mother's coffin while the world watched in eerie silence. Not for the teenager who wore a forced grin while the tabloids turned his life into entertainment. He had run from that world, across oceans, across borders, across loyalties. But the cameras, they always followed. And tonight, on Real Time with Bill Maher, Harry believed he was there to defend his truth. But Maher had other plans. He wanted a reckoning. It began subtly. Bill eased into it, clever, sarcastic, polite on the surface, but with daggers under every word. I mean, come on, Maher said, grinning. You moved to America, signed deals with Netflix. Now you're giving speeches about trauma and press intrusion. Feels a bit contradictory, doesn't it? Harry's jaw tensed, he answered calmly. I share because I've seen what silence does. I've seen what it did to my mother. I won't repeat history. The crowd applauded, but it wasn't unanimous. Some shifted, whispered, others watched Bill, waiting. He leaned in. And yet, you and Meghan, you've become the very brand you say you're escaping. Isn't there a bit of hypocrisy there? Silence. A pin could drop. Harry's voice, low and even. You think truth is hypocrisy? You think protecting my family is branding? Bill smirked. I think you've monetized your pain and called it purpose. That did it. Harry's shoulders tensed. His hand curled slightly into a fist. The air turned electric. Behind the scenes, producers whispered frantically. Was this going too far? But Bill didn't stop. He wanted the reaction. The moment. The spark. And Harry, he gave it. You don't know what I've been through, Harry snapped, voice rising. You sit here and mock a man who watched his mother die because of this circus, who begged the world to just let him breathe, and then ran to Oprah. Bill interjected, flatly, gasps. Audible now. Harry stared at him, fury simmering beneath restraint. Careful, Harry said, coldly. Bill nodded. No, you be careful. Because the moment you sell your trauma, you invite questions. Criticism. That's not bullying, that's accountability. Harry stood not abruptly, not dramatically, but slowly, deliberately. His mic brushed against his jacket. The audience murmured in confusion. Was this scripted? No. This was real. He looked down at Bill Maher, a man known for dismantling public figures with a laugh and a wink. Not this time. You don't understand me, Harry said. And frankly, I don't think you want to. Then, without a glance back, he walked off. Just like that. No goodbyes. No dramatic speeches. Just silence. And the stunned faces of an audience that came for a debate, but witnessed a breakdown. The clip went viral within hours. Headlines screamed across social media. Prince Harry storms off. Royal meltdown. On live TV, Bill Maher silences despair. By morning, the footage had been watched over 18 million times. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had something to say. But inside Harry's world, silence. Real silence. The kind that wraps around your chest like iron. He sat in the back of a black SUV that night, eyes fixed on the blur of Los Angeles passing by. Meghan sat beside him, quiet, protective. She hadn't watched the show yet, but she didn't have to. The pain in his face told her everything. They baited you, she finally whispered. You walked into a trap. Harry didn't answer. Not yet, because deep down, part of him feared she was right. Back at the studio, the aftermath was chaotic. Bill Maher tried to keep the show moving, but the energy was off. Distracted, uneasy, the audience was still murmuring about what had just happened. Even Bill C's, smug, unshakable, seemed rattled. During the next commercial break, one of his producers approached him, carefully. "You want to walk that back?" she asked. "You kind of poked the royal bear." He shrugged. If he can't handle a few questions, maybe he shouldn't be on television. But his eyes didn't match his voice. They looked distant, even a little shaken. Because in that moment, Maher wasn't entirely sure he'd just hosted an interview. He might have triggered a man still buried under years of wounds, and the world had watched him do it. 2 days before the show, Harry had sat in a quiet hotel room, going over notes with his team. They'd warned him about Maher. "He's sharp, he'll push you, maybe even provoke you." Harry had nodded. "I can handle it," he'd said. But something had felt different this time. He wasn't just promoting a documentary, or a charity, or a memoir. This time, he was coming to defend something intangible. His truth, his choices, his manhood. And when you walk into battle, holding your identity in your hands, even the smallest blow can feel like an earthquake. Meghan watched the clip later that night. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared, then turned off the screen. "That wasn't journalism," she said quietly. "That was theater." Harry stood in the doorway, tense. "I shouldn't have gone. You shouldn't have had to explain your life to someone looking for ratings," she said, walking to him. "You don't owe anyone your pain." He looked at her, eyes glassy. "But they act like I do. Like everything I say is for attention. That my grief is a product." She cupped his face, gently. "You are not a product." He nodded slowly, but didn't fully believe it yet. Back in the UK, palace sources reportedly raised eyebrows. One unnamed aide described Harry's outburst as unbecoming of a royal, even a former one. Another said it was proof he's unraveling. And, just like that, the circus was back. Pundits debated whether Harry had lost control, or reclaimed it. Was he the victim? Or just another celebrity who couldn't take the heat? Was Bill Maher asking the questions everyone was afraid to ask? Or had he crossed a line? The lines blurred quickly. Public sympathy fractured. Even longtime supporters were split. Some said, "He's human, let him be." Others scoffed, "He wants privacy and the spotlight. Can't have both." And through it all, Harry stayed silent. No statements, no apologies, no PR spin, because this time he didn't know what to say. He thought about his mother that night. Diana, the interviews, the tears, the desperate plea for dignity. She'd warned him, in her own way, that the moment you step outside the palace walls, you step into a battlefield. And now here he was, wounded, alone in a new country, with old ghosts. But something stirred in him too. Not anger, conviction. This wasn't the end of the conversation. It was the beginning. Because for the first time, he wasn't trying to be a prince. He was trying to be a man. 3 days passed. The headlines didn't fade. They multiplied. Late-night comedians jumped in. Social media swarmed with edits, memes, side-by-side clips of the Oprah interview and the Maher meltdown. But in the background were no cameras. Terry was quiet, not defeated, focused. He hadn't spoken publicly since walking off Maher's show, but he was watching, listening, feeling. And by the 4th day, something inside him broke free. Not the part of him trained to bow, smile, wave. The part that had been locked away for years. The part that knew what it felt like to be humiliated, cornered, exploited and still stand. He sat down at a table with Meghan that morning. She placed a cup of tea beside him. Calm still. "I want to say something," he told her, voice low. "Not to defend myself. Not anymore." She didn't interrupt. "I want to speak. For every person who's been mocked for showing pain." She nodded slowly. "Then speak." That evening, Harry posted a short video. No royal lighting, no professional backdrop, just him. A plain room, a shaky camera. His words, measured but raw. To those who watched what happened on Bill Maher's show, "I understand your questions. I've heard the jokes, the judgments, the noise." A pause. "But I need you to hear mine." He leaned forward. "My entire life, I was taught to keep it inside. Smile, endure, move on. But silence never saved anyone. It didn't save my mum. It didn't save me." His eyes held the lens. "And when I finally spoke, when I found the courage to say, 'This hurt me,' the world said I was too loud, too soft, too dramatic. A beat. Maybe I am. Maybe that's okay. But if being soft means standing up against cruelty, then I'll stay soft." The response. Instant. Explosive. Hash is up. Port Harry trended worldwide. Millions watched. Thousands commented. Some with tears. some with fury. And still, there were critics. Victim complex, one wrote. Another rich man crying, said another. But Harry didn't flinch. He wasn't speaking to them anymore. He was speaking to the boy inside. Him who once wanted to disappear behind palace walls. The boy who never had a voice. Now, he did. Meanwhile, Bill Maher addressed the controversy on his next show, smirking. Arms folded, he opened with a joke. Well, I guess I broke a prince. Add that to the resume. The audience laughed, but not as loud this time. He continued. Look, I ask tough questions. That's what I do. And if people can't handle it, maybe they shouldn't sit in the chair. But there was a flicker in his voice. Almost defensive. He wasn't used to backlash that stung. And this one, it was different. Because for once, the audience wasn't just laughing with him. Some were asking why was that funny. A week later, a leaked memo from inside HBO revealed that several executives were deeply concerned about the fallout. Sponsors were nervous. Social media sentiment had dipped out. And a quiet phone call happened. Not public, not official, but very real. Between Maher's team and Harry's the offer. A follow-up. A chance to clear the air. But Maher wanted Harry back on the show. But this time, Harry didn't hesitate. No, it wasn't bitterness. It was clarity. For the first time in years, Harry wasn't chasing peace. He was claiming it. And it didn't live in a studio chair or a ratings battle. It lived in his voice. His truth. His refusal to shrink just to make someone else comfortable. But the story didn't end there. Not quite. Because with the noise came something else. Letters, emails, DMS, messages from strangers who had never spoken up before. A single mother in Detroit. I cried at work today watching your video. You said what I couldn't. A teenager in Brazil. They laughed when I talked about my depression. You made me feel seen. A veteran. In Kentucky. Trauma doesn't care about crowns. I get you. And just like that, Harry realized something powerful. He hadn't been embarrassed on that stage. He'd been exposed, and sometimes, exposure is the first step to healing. It wasn't the scandal that changed things. It was the silence after the world had shouted, mocked, picked sides. But Harry, he had done something else. He listened. And in that stillness, something strange happened. For the first time in years he felt light. Not because the world had forgiven him, but because he had stopped begging for it. Weeks passed. The Maher controversy began to fade. A new celebrity scandal took over. A politician imploded. The news cycle shifted like a storm cloud drifting away. But the impact, it lingered. Behind closed doors, conversations were changing. In homes, in therapy rooms, in classrooms, people were asking, what if we don't mock people for breaking down? What if we stop confusing strength with silence? And in that quiet revolution, Harry's words lived on. He returned to the public stage, but on his own terms. No talk shows, no interviews, no confrontational arenas. Instead, he started something different. A foundation. Not just for veterans or trauma victims, but for truth tellers. People who had been ridiculed, minimized, questioned, just for being open. They called it the Bear Room, a space to speak without shame. 2. Share without labels. 2. Strip titles, cameras, expectations, and just be human. And when he announced it, he didn't do it with a press release. He spoke from a small hall in Santa Barbara. No fanfare, no velvet ropes. Just Harry, a stool, and a mic. I used to think pain made me weak, that talking about it made me smaller. But it turns out, hiding it was the real burden. And I'm done hiding. The crowd stood as he left the stage, not because he was a prince, but because he wasn't pretending to be one anymore. Flashback. Emotionally cinematic, he remembered walking behind Diana's coffin at age 12. The cameras clicking, the eyes burning. He had wanted to scream. Then wanted to run. But no one gave him permission to grieve, only to perform now. Decades later, he had given that permission to himself. And by doing so, he gave it to others too. Meanwhile, Bill Maher's show continued. Ratings dipped briefly, then stabilized. But something had shifted in him too. He joked less about trauma after that, made more room for nuance. In a later episode, he even admitted, maybe I came at Harry too hard. Maybe the old way of tough love isn't always the right way. And while the apology wasn't direct, it was enough. Harry heard it, and let it be. Forgiveness doesn't always come in loud declarations. Sometimes, it arrives like a sigh. Soft, private, unfinished. That's how healing looks in real life. Messy, quiet, beautiful. Harry never went back on real time. He didn't need to, because the world had seen enough to know he wasn't a villain. Not a saint either. Just a man. Flawed. Brave. Raw. And finally, free. So when people ask what really happened on that stage, the answer isn't simple. Yes, he walked off. Yes, it was tense. Yes, it made headlines. But what happened after? That was the real story. A man didn't crumble. He rose, not in royal robes, but in truth.